China says NVIDIA's Mellanox acquisition violated antitrust law. New York detailed its plans for online age verification rules. And early access is the latest place where Steam is restricting games with mature themes. It's Tuesday, September 16th. And here's a quick look at tech in the news this morning from Engadget. A regulator has accused NVIDIA of violating China's antitrust laws over its acquisition of chipmaker Mellanox. In its preliminary findings of an investigation it commenced in December, the State Administration for Market Regulation, or SAMR, claimed that the company breached both national regulations and the conditional terms China outlined when it rubber-stamped the $6.9 billion takeover. The SAMR has not announced any penalties yet as the investigation continues. The SAMR is said to have determined its preliminary findings several weeks ago. Now, according to Financial Post sources, the regulator held off from releasing its statement until now, as trade talks with the U.S. take place in Madrid with the idea of giving Chinese officials more leverage. Those talks have so far resulted in a framework agreement for TikTok. NVIDIA and Mellanox announced the buyout back in 2019. China approved it in April the following year on the condition that NVIDIA continued to supply GPUs and interconnect products to the country and adhere to fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory principles. That's according to the South China Morning Post. Last month, it was reported that China was discouraging companies in the country from buying NVIDIA's H20 chips pending a national security review. Officials were said to have taken offense at remarks from Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Commerce Secretary. After the U.S. allowed NVIDIA to start offering chips to China again in July, following a 3-month ban, Lutnick said the company was not going to be selling its most cutting-edge tech there. He told CNBC in an interview, "We don't sell them our best stuff, not our second best stuff, not even our third best, the fourth one down. We want to keep China using it. The idea is the Chinese are more than capable of building their own. You want to keep one step ahead of what they can build, so they keep buying our chips. You want to sell the Chinese enough that their developers get addicted to the American technology stack." Last year, New York joined the wave of states passing legislation aimed at protecting minors using the internet, particularly social media. Governor Kathy Hochul signed the Stop Addictive Feeds Exploitation, or Safe for Kids Act, and the New York Child Data Protection Act in June last year. On Monday, the state's Attorney General Letitia James released more specifics about what the Safe for Kids Act will entail in practice. Public comment is open until December 1st, and the rules must be finalized within a year from that date. In particular, the rule will require online platforms to confirm the ages of users before showing them algorithmically curated feeds or sending them notifications at night. The Attorney General's approach allows sites to choose their method of age verification as long as it's shown to be effective and protect users' data. New York will also require an age confirmation method that does not rely on having a government-issued ID. There is also a component of parental consent in the Safe for Kids Act. Minors must request a social media network to seek parental permission for accessing algorithmic feeds or receiving nighttime notifications. If parental consent is not granted, the platforms may not block minors from generally accessing their service or content. Both the minor and their parents may revoke their consent at any time. James said, "The proposed rules released by my office today will help us tackle the youth mental health crisis and make social media safer for kids and families. This is an issue that affects all of us, and I encourage parents, educators, young people, industry groups, and others to review the proposed rules and submit a comment during the public comment period." Valve has apparently updated its Steam Early Access policy to no longer accept games with what the company deems to be mature themes. As first reported by Gamesmarkt earlier this month, Gaming studio Dammitbird, which develops the adult adventure game Heavy Hearts, was not allowed to put the title on Steam Early Access because of its content. Payment processors like MasterCard and Visa have been mounting a pressure campaign on video game marketplaces Steam and itch.io to remove certain adults-only content since early summer. After taking down a game called No Mercy in April at the behest of payment processors and an Australian anti-porn organization, there has been a steady expansion in the application of these new policies. Steam, for its part, made some incredibly vague policy changes to appease the payment giants, adding a sweeping clause that promises to ban certain kinds of adults-only content before proceeding to remove hundreds of games. Itch.io made similar changes before removing more than 20,000 titles from its marketplace. The apparent scope creep is of particular concern to small, independent developers whose fairly innocuous games like Vile Exhumed were banned from Steam and delisted from itch. Exhumed is a mostly text-based game whose limited imagery and innuendo is worlds away from the sort of adult games that were first banned when this whole saga kicked off. Part of the problem is how card payments are policed. Stores like Steam and itch do not contract with Visa or MasterCard directly, but with acquiring banks and processors that must enforce the card network's brand safety and anti-trafficking rules. This can end up influencing how companies like PayPal work with Steam across different regions, depending on how banks in those areas are responding to the pressure exerted by Visa and MasterCard. The confusion will continue to cause consternation among developers and consumers alike until policies on these platforms are made clearer or payment processors relieve some of the pressure by clarifying their own standards. Thanks for listening. There's more to these stories and more tech news at Engadget.com. This episode featured journalism from Chris Holt, Anna Washenko, and Andre Revilla, and was voiced and produced from the sound studios of Spoken Layer. Enjoy your day, and I'll be back tomorrow morning with more tech news from Engadget.